All in Sports Network. We love sports.
Coming to you from the land of Bristol barbecue, golf, cars, and more. This is All In Colts, presented by the Unstable Blues.
Welcome back in. It's time once again to take a look at Colts players and their fantasy stats and projections in our Colts Fantasy Stable. So, let's go. All In Colts.
I'm Kevin. This is my son Liam. And we are the Unstable Blues, happy to present All In Colts as part of the Rogue Media Sports Network.
Yep. Quick Colts Corner Bulletin. I remember that it happened that time.
Yeah.
Michael Pittman Jr., or MPJ as some people reference him to, has a back injury that could keep him out several weeks and could even land him on IR. So, fantasy people, watch out for that. We'll kind of dive into that a little bit more whenever we go into Michael Pittman himself as a fantasy player over this past week.
Yeah. For the Colts in general, what's your feeling on this?
It's frustrating because he's been the guy, but JT's been the guy the majority of the year, to be honest. MPJ has kind of not been there until pretty much this week. And Pittsburgh, I don't know. I mean, he's shown up a lot lately, but with the back injury, it'll probably set him back more. I don't know. I think it'll kind of have to be – because I trust Joe Flacco to get the ball out more than I do AR. Just because Joe Flacco has more experience in the league. AR has shown that he can be really good, but he's shown that he can also not be that great. So I don't know. I guess we'll see whenever the time comes. It's a very vague answer, but that's kind of all I have at the moment.
All right. Yeah, I mean, the hits just keep on coming.
Yeah.
You know?
I think this is a year where we've dealt with like a ton more injuries than we normally deal with, or that's at least what it feels like.
Yeah, it's definitely higher profile.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and all
of our high profile games.
You got your number one edge rusher, you got your number one defensive tackle, you got your number one number one corner essentially with
number one corner, number one wide receiver, number one running back, your wide receiver number one. Although I did see something that an Instagram thing, it's like hot takes that we learned to be true from week 5. And the one about the Colts was Joe Flacco should start over AR and AR should learn behind Joe Flacco. And I was like, it's not a terrible idea. It's just the fact that they aren't the same type of quarterback at all. So, right. I don't know.
Speaking of which, let's dive into a little bit of that and maybe more as we talk about their fantasy points.
Yep. First up, Anthony Richardson, as always. Obviously, he didn't play last week, so he got 0 points. We don't know exactly where he is with his injury. We know it's an oblique. That's it, really. If he does play, his projection is 17 points. As of right now, everyone in fantasy is just assuming he's going to play, which kind of leads us into our next person, being Joe Flacco. We added him this week because of the incredible week he had this past week with 27 points. I believe he was in 4th. I'm not 100% sure on that. After Sunday's games, he was in 4th for fantasy points. The projection for him is don't know yet because everyone on fantasy is expecting AR to play, and that's kind of where their projections are going. So in theory, Joe Flacco is supposed to get 0 points, but they don't put anything down just in case Joe does start. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe starts this week, honestly, because we're playing the Titans. Yes, it's in Tennessee. It's all this stuff, but we've seen Joe can handle himself under pressure. He is Joe Cool, after all. So I'm completely fine with Mr. Flacco. Next up, MPJ. Last week he had 15 points. Pretty solid as a wide receiver. If you have anything above 12, 13 points, that's a good day from your people. You can still win your week off of people that have 12 or 13 points. So just getting above that just helps just a bit. Just helps from the slackers on your team who maybe didn't perform as well as they normally do. And I'm going to stop right here because we forgot to do our personal fantasy update.
We did. We also didn't get to dive into any more of the Anthony Richardson, Joe Flacco talk.
Okay. Let's do personal fantasy, and then we can dive into that.
I lost.
You did?
4 now.
Oh, you're one.
I lost to your brother, just like you did. No, who did? Whatever.
I am in my school league. I am 3-2. I was 2-2 this past week, so I won that game. Normally, I help Nick out with his fantasy team, but he was playing me, so I was like, "Hey, Nick, I'm playing you in fantasy this week." Kind of giving him a hint, like, "Hey, fix your players," type of thing. He didn't fix his players, so 4 of his players didn't play. I still end up racking up 140 points or something like that. So I don't think it would have mattered anyways, even if he did play, but it just doesn't make it that good if you rack up 140 points and your opponent gets 67, so you're over doubling them. Like, it doesn't make it satisfying. And then so I'm 3-2 in that, and then I am 5-0 in our league. I just beat, who did I beat? Jake, I believe. No. Who did I beat? I beat McKenna. My sister. Also, she just didn't switch her people. Her people didn't like it. It wasn't
she
like
had AR.
She had AR, but she still had like 7 people playing. They all just didn't do anything at all, and she got about 70 something points, and I racked up 130 something.
I told you it's the first bye week, and I looked at my stuff, and all my running backs were on a bye. So I had to go out and pick one. I picked up Kareem Hunt.
He did pretty good, didn't he?
Yeah, not a bad pickup. I put Rashid Shaheed in there. He had a good week. Like, people had good weeks, just not like great weeks, you know? So
I made a good call this week putting Chuba Hubbard in. One league I had DeAndre Swift. One league I had Chuba Hubbard. And Chicago and Carolina were playing each other, so they both had a pretty decent game. So I made a good call in that. But
and then your 2 quarterbacks in your 2 different leagues went off in the same game.
Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, indeed. Quick little stat before we move on to the quarterback controversy.
Yes.
And so ESPN Fantasy ESPN, I should say, put out a post on Instagram about there are 4% of people in leagues who are winless, including my mom. So she is part of 4% of people, and I am part of 4.7% of people who are undefeated. And I looked at my team, and I'm like, this really is a team that could probably win the rest of the season. I could say there's maybe 1 or 2 losses, but I would say I'm looking pretty, like, my draft grade, I got an A. I was the highest in the league. I was supposed to get first and all that. It's looking like it right now. It really is. So, well,
you know what? We got an 8-person league, and everybody's going to make the playoffs. So
nothing matters until the playoffs. Although seeding makes an easier path, theoretically. So theoretically speaking, if it stops where it is, I would be playing my mom again, who I just toasted. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Quarterback controversy.
Yes.
I kind of talked about it just for a brief moment.
Okay.
Let's hear your thoughts first.
Okay. So there's this talk out there in the internet, on the internet. I'm not sure if it's in or on.
I think it's on.
The correct terminology. I mean, I think it should be in. Are you ever on the internet?
No,
you're not. in the
on
internet.
it, but I don't know. I think if you describe it as if you're in the internet, that's kind of a bad thing. If that makes sense. Like if you're
Okay.
in the internet, you're just so zoned in that you're not thinking of anything else.
All right.
So I think on the internet sounds a little bit better than in the internet, but in the internet makes more
I'm
sense.
going to dish out an old term for you. I'm surfing the net. And
I do know that one.
all right.
Not that young.
Oh, and so yeah, so some people think that Anthony Richardson is a complete bust and the Colts should cut their losses, move on. Other people are like, well, he just needs more time to sit and learn from Joe Flacco. Last year it was Gardner Minshew. Joe Flacco, theoretically, I mean, statistically, a better quarterback, more experience. I've heard other people say that, he has all of the things you can't teach. The rest of it you can teach, right? He can do things that other quarterbacks can't do. But the things that other quarterbacks can do, he's not doing, right? But you can teach that stuff in theory.
Mm-hmm.
All that to say, until proven otherwise, Shane Steichen says this is our quarterback. And so until proven otherwise, I'm with that. I still think that it's becoming not so great of a track record that Shane is on your side as long as he sticks by Gus Bradley's side.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the head coach, and that's what he should do. I mean, he's supposed to stick up for his people, at least through the season. So, yeah, that's kind of where my head is. Joe Flacco is great to have, great fallback. I don't know if this team can unlock its full potential with Joe Flacco at quarterback.
That makes sense. I think I could agree with that.
I do think at this point it's better. The team is better suited to stay on the field on offense and keep the chains moving.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that Joe Flacco is a long-term solution.
I agree.
Obviously, for many reasons, age being the most, obvious one.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing the Colts need is another several years of fill-in quarterback. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
So at this point, you ride out Anthony Richardson, at least through his rookie contract, see what he can do. Right? That's the plan.
Mm-hmm.
You stick to the plan. That's what you do.
I completely agree with you.
All right, moving on.
Yes.
We did
Past
Michael Pittman.
MPJ into
On to
80 Mitchell.
potentially Michael Pittman's fill-in.
Yes. We'll see. Last week he had 9 points. He stepped it up, his best week yet. In my notes, I said he did pretty good. Finally showing up. And his projection is supposed to be around 8 points, something like that. I don't know how these projections work, to be honest, because he's very inconsistent. It's hard to project him. He looked to be better with Joe Flacco, though. So I don't know if that means anything. He performed pretty well with Joe. Next is Alec Pierce. Another huge week from the guy. 22 points. He did really good. The wide receivers tended to not do that great this week because all of the good wide receivers either weren't performing, had a bye week. Yeah, weren't performing or had a bye week.
Or
So
were injured. I got
or
A.J.
they were
Browning.
injured. Yeah. So, 22 points off Alec Pierce is great. Did anyone have him in their league? Probably not, honestly.
Maybe not unless you listen to this show.
Exactly.
Right
He is projected to get 9 points, so a little bit more than AD Mitchell. I would put him over AD Mitchell to start if I were you. And then our last wide receiver is Josh First Downs. Was Josh touchdowns this week? He had a touchdown. Wait, did he?
No.
Oh, no, he did not. But he was still Josh First Downs.
He definitely was Josh First Downs.
16 points for him. Pretty solid outing. And he's projected to get the highest amount of fantasy points this week of a Colts receiver, being at 12 points. So major props to him. He is on your team, and you played him, didn't you? 16 points. He had a play where he had like 25 points, 25 yards, and then he got that taken off of him because of he did his celebration, and he accidentally made it into like a gun signal, and that is not allowed now. No guns at all. Bow and arrow though.
Was it a gun?
Bow and arrow's okay.
Was it a gun?
He did this and then kind of popped up his fingers.
Like
he's going first down, but this is a gun. This is translated as a gun. Hopefully it doesn't get us in trouble, but this is a gun.
I feel like we're oversensitive here.
Yeah.
I get it. Did you see the video of what caused this problem? With
Maybe.
South Carolina receiver?
Maybe.
Okay.
Did he score a touchdown and
No, he just got a first down, and he basically pulled out a semi-automatic on the DB who fell down, who's already on the ground.
Oh yeah, and he went.
Careful.
No, yeah, I saw that.
You go look it up on your own time. We're not gonna get flagged, and we're not gonna.
No.
But it.
I saw
that for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
But seriously, Josh First Down is just excited about his first down. He's not pointing anything at anyone.
Yeah.
Unless that person is way down in the Pat McAfee suites. And I guarantee you that's not happening.
Yeah. So
and those people don't care about it anyway. So
bow and arrow though. That's fine.
Yeah, but that doesn't say first down.
Yeah. Pat McAfee had a whole conversation on his podcast about that. So I kind of watched that clip, and they were discussing if a crossbow is a bow and arrow or a gun. And we are not going to get into that. I think it's a gun because
I just don't understand it. It's frustrating. Get it, but it's frustrating. Why are we doing penalties on this? There was obviously no malintent whatsoever. Why are we doing this? I mean, I'm not getting to the point where I'm going, you're taking my fantasy points away. I'm just why are we doing 15 yards for that? Seriously? That has no bearing on the game, and therefore should not have a bearing on the game.
Mm-hmm. Next person. Our running back, JT, didn't play, 0 points. I don't have the Trey Sermon fantasy stats, although I know he did really well. He had 18, 20 fantasy points, something like that. So really, really solid performance from him. If you ended up putting Trey Sermon in, great job. You made the right call. My mom actually did that. So really good call on her. If he does play this upcoming week, he is still questionable, kind of a week by week thing. I wouldn't be shocked once again, like AR, if he doesn't play. But if he does, he's supposed to get 17.6 points or 18 points, however you want to see that. So he's still a start until they come out with the actives and inactives, and then, or if you have a Thursday night football running back that you might want to put in. Who's playing on Thursday night? I know. It's the Seahawks and Niners, because Nick is going to pay attention to that game. I told him, I'm like, I'm sorry, Seahawks are not winning. And he's like, it's the Niners, I know. At least he knows, though.
And it's the 90s uniform matchup.
Mm-hmm. Back then, it was 49ers.
Yes, it was.
Defense finally, yeah, -4 points. They did terrible.
Yeah.
I have in my notes, in the comparison to other people, I said terrible, comma, let Padre talk. Take it away.
You want me to ring the defense? Okay. Okay, where to start?
Before you do this, let me just run the projection.
Okay.
6 points.
Okay.
Don't count on anything though.
Okay.
Don't
All
play
right.
them.
All right. Okay. Where do we start? Maybe we start with wee.
Who got cut?
Wee. Man. And I sent you that. I like. I for the first time saw the meme. Came across it. What in the world are we doing? Just what are we doing? Like, there's a guy running in front of you, and you look like you're practicing your skydiving. And I love Dallas Flowers. Like, great potential. His run backs great, but obviously, little DB troubles. Overall defense, tackle someone. It literally goes back to fundamentals. Like, this stuff should have been sorted out back in OTAs and then into training camp. We should not be having these kinds of issues where we are pinballing people. We're just running into them. We're playing bumper cars with people.
If it is someone like Derrick Henry, or if Marshawn Lynch was still in the game, that's different because they can just manhandle people. Yes, his name is Tank, but he's not necessarily built like a tank. He's built like Travis Etienne.
And I got okay. So I get it. Like, there's some things working against defenders in the NFL. The amount of practice time is reduced because of the CBA, collective bargaining agreement. The amount of actual tackling you can do on people is greatly reduced, if not non-existent, because we don't want to hurt people. We don't want to have a Josh Downs, Nick Cross incident.
Mm-hmm.
But this is good. Like, you've been doing this since Pee-wee at this point. You're taught to aim for the waist, wrap your arms around them, and pull them to the ground. Not a hip drop tackle. It's not a hip drop tackle. This is not what that is. We're not yanking them. This is grab them around the waist, twist, and pull down. Right? Am I correct? This is what you're taught to do. Okay.
Yeah.
You do it slow to begin with so you can get the principles down. But the last thing you want to do is push them and hope that they fall. These are professional football player grown men that are paid to not go down. Meanwhile, you are paid to bring them down, not push them down. Bring them down. Bring them all the way to the ground. That's the only way that stops the play. Until you hear the whistle, you just assume everyone needs to be brought to the ground. Okay? Fundamental football is how you need to play the game.
Now, on the bright side, EJ Speed still in the lead of the league in tackles.
Really?
Tied with the Raiders guy. Someone on the Raiders. So Nick Cross is no longer in the top 5, though.
Yeah. Which is, I'm
okay expected from a safety.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
EJ's, though, should be up there.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in a What year?
Contract year.
Yeah. That's how you get the best out of your players. Even if you think and you want to sign them back, don't sign them back. Make them play their best.
Dak
Auditioning
Prescott.
for you and the other 31 teams in a contract year.
Dak Prescott.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
Trevor Lawrence. Jordan Love. May I go
on? So yes, defense needs to be better. This is what is frustrating, that the coaches are talking about the explosive plays, and while that is an issue, to me that is a product of the issue, because shouldn't say all the explosive plays, because there was one explosive play that the tackling was so bad that but all the others were like the two other. There were two other big explosive plays. Really, it was like Tanks and Christian Kirk. Those were missed tackles, straight up missed tackles, bouncing people around rather than bringing them down. Right. So that's my big issue there. So, okay, I've said my piece. This is a fantasy episode.
It's fine. You're allowed to rip into them.
It's not a fantasy. It's a nightmare.
We are not Indianapolis media. We are not necessarily nice around them. You can rip into them if you want.
But we also aren't huge complainers either. Like, there's some people out there that all they do is complain, and I'm like, I'm a fan, and I believe the best, but I also know that y'all can do better. Come on.
Yeah.
So
that's. I mean, you kind of took all the words out of my mouth. I don't really have anything else to say about the defense.
Do better. Do better. At this point, when you're trying to point fingers, again, we're at the Spider-Man meme where everybody's pointing this way. Everybody needs to start doing a little bit of this.
Taking accountability.
And if everybody starts doing that, then maybe we might be seeing a result, because Chris Ballard needs to get better people. Gus Bradley needs to coach them better, and the players need to execute better. All of them can be true all at the same time, and the blame can be a shared responsibility. Yeah, it shouldn't just fall on one person. Yes, there should be better personnel. Yes, Gus should be able to scheme up and do better with what he has. But yes, also the players should be able to tackle people better.
It's true.
That's where it comes down to. Yep. Well, that is it for today. We will previewing the Colts trip to the Music City to take on the Titans. Can they recapture last year's overtime thriller, or will it be more of the same misery from the past? We will give you all the info you need to know headed into Sunday.
This is Liam.
And this is Kevin.
Reminding you to stay all in Colts.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.